1987, I rejoined the struggle and ended up back in prison in 1989. But I remember reading a newspaper report by a man from Ireland. He was a politician and an academic. He was seen as one of the leading intellects in the southern state here, a man called Conor Cruise O'Brien. And he had been on a tour of universities in South Africa during the apartheid regime. And he wrote then, and I think it might have been early 1990, that apartheid was here to stay for the foreseeable future, and there was no prospect of Nelson Mandela being released. And yet, within the space of 2 years, Mandela was free, and in a very short space of time after that, the apartheid regime had collapsed completely. So I offer that as, in the worst of times, in the darkest of days, sometimes we don't see the sun on the horizon. And so always be sure, be confident that someday what people are experiencing in Bahrain will come to an end. Of that, there's no doubt. So I'll end there. Thank you, Tara.
Pat, thanks so much for that. It really was inspirational to listen to you and to have taken hope from what you've said, because obviously these things do change with necessary applied pressure. I'm going to hand over to Ali Mashema now, if I may, please. Ali, if you'd like to make your intervention. Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Tara and Salam, for organizing this important event on Nelson Mandela Day. And I must say it is an honor to be on a panel with Pat Sheehan, an Irish ex-political prisoners whom we look to for his experience in dealing with hundreds of years of occupation and whom we share solidarity with from Bahrain. I am a Bahraini activist exile living in the UK. I was first arrested when I was 15 years old for joining a street demonstration against the Al Khalifa regime back in the 90s. My father, Hassan Mushemi, who is a political rival to the ruling dictatorial monarchy, has spent more than 10 years in prison and has been sentenced to life because of his political views, as reported by well-regarded international organizations such as Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International, as well as the United Nations through special rapporteurs or various investigative committee. In addition to the vicious physical torture my father endured during his arrest in March 2011, he is subjected to another kind of torture that has continued unchecked during these bleak and harsh years of containment. It is the neglect of his medical file. At the time of his arrest, he had been cured of lymphoma, although he still required regular tumor checks. He was not taking medication for example, blood pressure or diabetes and etc. But today, due to poor conditions in a prison and medical neglect, he has suffered many health setbacks that have caused a significant decline in his health. During this, the first 2 years of detention, there were 4 operations performed on him as a direct result of torture and beatings. In addition to these surgeries, and due to medical negligence and irregularity in the provision of medicines and health follow-up, he is currently taking approximately 20 tablets of medicine for the following disease. Two types of diabetes medication plus 4 insulin per day, 6 type of medicine for the problem of blood pressure, additional medicines for gout, prostate, stomach, and nerve pain, and other health disease. My father also suffers from severe allergic reaction on the skin for years, sometimes even drawing blood as a result of scratching a constant itch. Now his hearing is deteriorating. He does not hear well, and he needs another operation in the ear, for which he has been waiting for 5 years. Another health problem that appears to be related to complications with the diabetes is an uncomfortable sensation of severe tingling, numbness, and extreme cold in the lower body, especially in his feet. When sleeping, he needs to use 2 blankets to warm his body. Approximately 6 months ago, he was experiencing severe pain in the right knee. He was provided only painkillers. And after a short period of these symptoms, his feet become swollen as a result of continued medical neglect and lack of urgency in presenting him to a doctor. The swelling extend to his leg, reaching to thigh. From that time until this moment, he has been provided pain relievers or painkiller, which are medicines that has negative contraindications on his stomach. I raised this issue recently with many human rights, diplomatic, and media bodies, and after great and tremendous pressure, my father was brought to a diabetes specialist, but today they have not diagnosed the problem, and he has not received the necessary treatment except for continuing dispense painkiller to him. This dilemma of medical neglect of prisoners is, we believe, an intentional and systematic policy in the prisons of Al Khalifa regime. During these last 10 years, my father suffered a lot from disreputed treatment, delayed or inadequate medication, and access to appointments with specialists or even qualified medics. So that each and every time there is an element or complications, we have to make a large and wide campaign to ensure that he received medical treatment, which is the simplest of human rights to comply with, considering that the Irish Royal College of Surgeons has a base on the island with doctors of outstanding expertise. In 2018, I slept on the street outside the Bahrain embassy in London for 63 days and went on hunger strike for 46 of those days in desperate attempt to pressure the authorities to ensure my father had access to medicine. I'm talking to you about a 73 years old elderly man who is treated in this shameful way, a prisoner condemned because he loved his country and rejected injustice. In fact, the case of my father, Hassan Mushaymi, is one of the many better examples of medical neglect in Al Khalifa prisons. There are further instances of political prisoners who have actually died in jail prison as a direct result of this practice of medical disregard. The two most recent victims to have fallen to medical abandonment are Hussein Barakat and Abbas Malala. My dad used to say he feels that this is a calculated policy of slow killing and it is intentional. This crime is taking place with the knowledge and oversight of British government, unfortunately, which is supervising the training of the political and regulatory bodies in Bahrain under the pretext of developing a human rights system. In fact, they are covering up and teaching Bahrain the skill of deception, of whitewashing crime and violations. Finally, we will not surrender our demand for freedom from this tyrannical stranglehold that we are in as a country, and we refuse to accept that the provision of adequate medical treatment is used to compromise the dignity of our political prisoners. We continue to seek justice and accountability for what we have proved in this deliberate misadministration of Khalifa prisons due to medical care. Finally, as well, I want to end by saying our thoughts and solidarity are with prisoners, Mr. Victor Abdul Jalil Singhes, who is on his 10th day of hunger strike for basic rights for the prisoners. And in reaction to the authorities confiscating the book that he has been writing over the past 3 years or more while he is in prison. Thank you for listening.
Ali, thank you very much indeed for that. And all respect to you for your participation in this long struggle you've had over the last 10 years. I know that Minister Sheehan, you need to step away, and I just wanted to give you the space to do that. If there are questions for Minister Sheehan, I'd be happy to pass them on. I'm sure that there will be many, and we will be in touch with you again, Minister Sheehan. Thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you, Tara, and thanks to everyone here. And I just want to express my solidarity with everyone here, and particularly with the relatives of prisoners, and of course the prisoners themselves. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions if Tara passes them on, and I'm more than willing to do another meeting like this if you want at some stage in the future to have questions answered on the spot. Unfortunately, I have another engagement today and can't stay. But again, thanks for the invitation to speak here today, and please pass on my best wishes and solidarity to all the prisoners. Thank you.
Thank you
for being so generous with your time. Slán, Mahu. I need to move on now, if I may, to Ms. Hina Rabai from Bahrain Forum. Hina, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tara. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings to the organizers of this webinar, Salam, Democracy for Human Rights, to the participants and to all who are watching. And I want to say it was very touching listening to what happened in Ireland, and very sad to have heard it for the first time only. I think it is very effective if the oppressed people in one side of the world could know what's happening with other oppressed and spread their stories. That will be very effective. And I think it's very relative to what's happening in Bahrain. In Bahrain, since the beginning of the uprising in 2011, prison violations against prisoners of conscience have been a main topic or a main type of the total types of violations practiced by the Bahraini authorities against the opposition movements. Prison violations are divided into three main subheadings: torture, ill treatment, and denial of medical treatment. For 10 years now, since the uprising, independent human rights organizations have recorded thousands of prison violations. Only in this year, 2021, 681 individual prison violations and 36 group prison violations have been already recorded on the first half of the year. The individual prison violations are distributed as follows: 49 cases of physical torture, 276 cases of ill treatment, and 356 cases of medical treatment denial. Now, when we list these numbers, we care to deliver to the whole world that they are not just statistics. They're not just dry numbers, so to speak. They are innocent people in pain, in suffering, in struggling. They reflect also families who live in constant worry about their detained relatives and are arbitrarily deprived of their beloved ones. When we talk about torture, for example, we mean the physical torture that is monitored and stated in numbers and in details by human rights organizations, and the moral tortures that detainees express in their testimonies that they provide to their families and to the independent human rights organizations. Since before the crisis in Bahrain, the Bahraini authorities have used torture as a systematic policy and tool of revenge against its opposition on one hand, and practically as a means to extract false confessions on the other hand. By that, I mean not only torture that happened inside prisons, but the use of torture in investigation rooms against detainees to distract confessions for crimes that they did not commit, on the basis of which the authorities build formally their ready judicial rulings that are not impartial. Investigators use common methods of torture such as electric shocks, sexual harassment, and severe beatings, and other not very methods, but methods that are used, such as rape, uprooting fingernails, hanging on a fan, in addition to different methods of moral torture. Many prisoners signed unread confessions blindfolded and are sentenced based on them. Some prisoners were even executed based on such false confessions. Mainly, I will mention the prisoner Ali Al-Arab, who had his fingernails uprooted for confessions that he was executed for. Speaking of executions, I would also like to light upon the topic of medical treatment denial that is very common in the prisons of Bahrain, and that is a daily situation the prisoners face. As I mentioned before, there have been already 356 cases of medical treatment denial during this year. The reason I linked this topic to execution is because of the cases of fatalities that occurred due to it. Namely, the former prisoner of conscience, Abbas Malala, who died due to being denied medical treatment for so long. This year, he died on April. Such violations are usually followed by complaints from the prisoners and their families and the independent human rights organizations, and they're also followed by individual and group protests inside prisons. This year, 2021, we have recorded 20 group protests and 11 individual protests in prisons, among which are the prominent figures, Dr. Abdel Jalil As-Singais and Sheikh Mirza Al-Mahrous, who have started hunger strikes for the negligence they received as response to their demands for their basic rights. Prisoners' complaints are provided to the National Institution for Human Rights, the Ombudsman, and the General Commission for Prisons. But those institutions who are supposed to maintain human rights, to work for human rights, do nothing to help the prisoners. All they do is actually try to create a shiny image, so to speak, for the authorities internationally regarding the human rights situation. That is just a brief of what prisoners of conscience face daily in silence while the world is distracted in many other issues. So we call upon all international organizations to condense their efforts to bring those facts to the international public opinion, to cause pressure on the Bahraini authorities for the immediate and unconditional release of all prisoners of conscience. I personally pray for the well-being of the people of Ireland after I heard the story, and for the well-being for all people who demand their basic rights and all their rights around the world. On the Nelson Mandela Day, I think all the oppressed in the world should actually back up each other and spread their stories and form a massive unit against oppression. Thank you.
Ina, I absolutely applaud what you have just said. You're really speaking my language. I think building the network of people who have solidarity together is critically important, and that we can change the world in doing that. I know that one of the wives of the political prisoners would like to speak now, and I ask if that person can be given the microphone.
تفضلي زوجة السجين الرائي جاسم، تفضلي.
Hi, good afternoon.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed, we can.
Yes. This is Naura Jasim al-Barbouri wife, one of the victims of incidents of April 17. Hello?
Yes, welcome.
نعم.
Go ahead.
Okay. Is everything good?
Yes, yes.
Go ahead.
نسمعك،
Yes.
تفضلي.
Okay. I can start now. Because of the ill treatment, the deterioration of humanitarian conditions, the miserable living conditions, and the subsequent enforced disappearance of more than 15 victims who were basically cut off from communications due to the spread of the coronavirus in the presence, which threatened their life, especially with the crowded of numbers in the small space that does not accommodate the normal condition as well as corona. And after the death of Abbas Malallah, due to the medical neglecting, and the prisoners held the peaceful gathering in which they expressed their angers at the confusing that's taking place. The police and friends to break this gathering by force, and this is unfortunately, and it's not humanity. They did bad things. The family hear what happens, like their sons, their husbands has bitten in their heads. They prevent from eating after fasting, which give them anxiety and great panic. What happened, gentlemen, is a massacres, is a crime by all standards. This give us the fearness, like what's happened inside. The incidents happens, like what can I say? There is nothing like giving. They didn't give us like standard things that's what happened to your husband. It's just what we hear from peoples, and what the another building say for us, that we hear sounds of your husbands, we hear the sounds of your sons, just this. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. You're listening.
Yes. We live this conditions for more than 1 month, like thinking what happens, what the conditions we get. We go for the ministries, we go for every place, like we must go, all the same answers. They don't give us something that make us comfortable. I can't maybe explain what's inside me exactly, because I don't know, nothing like give us it was very hard. After 1 month, my husband called me. What happened? Why you didn't call us for this long period? Just what he's saying, small words, what give me more emotions, that he's in a risk. He's not comfortable. He had medical issues that they didn't like go with him to the centers or something like this. That what can I say? What I heard from the families, that they sons, they beat them on them heads, especially the people that they have already medical conditions. They said for them, don't beat me in this place. They are like, what can I say?
Concentrating on that place.
Yes, concentrating on the same area that they are have medical issues in it. This is one thing. Another thing, they leave them without food, I think, for 5 days like this. Oh, sorry, 2 days, and the other days is just water and small items of foods. What I heard also, that they let them to sleep in the ground, and their hands and their legs is limited. They can't move. Even going to the toilet, they are closing their hands. They want to pray. They are saying for them, it's your issue. We will not open these things. After a long period, they bring the doctors to after they what happened to their bodies is coming healing, they bring the doctor. So it's just like a show that we bring for you a doctor, but seriously it's not benefit even. That's what I can say now, because I have limited time. Sorry, I need to lift.
Thank you for your courage, for speaking to us, and your bravery. And I really empathize with your suffering for your husband and your fear for his welfare, and the risk really to all of the vulnerable prisoners. And I really appreciate you joining us and giving us your perspective today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You're welcome. And sorry, because I'm like anxiety, because I have something to do. That's why I'm talking fastly, and it's not like direct order. Maybe I didn't give you the exact idea. I give you small of it.
It's quite all right. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Okay, you're welcome.
We pray for the release of your husband soon and the rest of the political prisoners.
Thank you. Thank you.
God bless.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Jawad, do we have another family member who wanted to speak today?
I don't think so. We have. You can take, I think, from the participants, so whatever comments if they're gonna have, then we can end it up later on. Thank you.
If I can impose, perhaps, please, on Ebtisam Al-Saya. Ebtisam, would you like to say a few words for us today, please, sister?
تفضل ابتسام، احنا ممكن نترجم اذا حبيتين تكلمين كم كلمه بالعربي.
هلا، مرحبا بكم. أشكركم وأشكر جميع الحاضرين. في الحقيقة تبقت لدينا عائلة تحاول أن تتحضر أن تكون مشاركة معنا، وإن شاء الله أن يحالفها الحظ أن تكون معنا. بالنسبة ل
ابتسام بس لحظة. We have maybe another family of the victims. Maybe soon they will join us to give their testimony if there be time allowed. And I really appreciate all your hard work and your to organize this event.
في الواقع سأتكلم عن تجربتنا في سجن النساء بالنسبة إلى قواعد مانديلا، بما أننا ندعم هذه القواعد ونؤمن فيها. أتذكر لما كنت موجودة في داخل السجن مع مجموعة من الصديقات زملاء الزنازين، وكنت أطالب بأن يكون التعامل وفق هذه القواعد. كان أغلبية الشرطة لا يعرفون ما هي قواعد مانديلا.
شكرا. I'll just brief on my experience in women's prisons and related to the Nelson Mandela's rule. It was so aware, so clear for us that all the prison administration, they are not aware on these rules.
وبالنسبة إلى مديرة السجن إنداك، كانت توزع بعض الأوراق في عندما تسيطر أو عندما ينتهي أمر كانت سيطرت عليه في السجن، كانت توزع ما هي مطالبكم، فكنت أكتب لها المطالب هي تنفيذ القواعد النموذجية لمعاملة السجناء. فكانت تضحك لأن هذه القواعد هي مكتوبة على الورق ولكن لا تطبق على أرض الواقع.
when the director of the prison used to pass by a paper to us to indicate our demands, when I used to let her know that our demands is their application of Nelson Mandela's rule, she used to laugh for our demand. So that clear indication that even if they say there are something that they want to implement in paper, but in practice they are neglecting it and not serious to implement it.
ما في الغالب لا نعرف حتى تهمنا في فترة الأولى. يعني من أهم القواعد أن تعرف لماذا أنت موقوف ولماذا أنت معتقل. لا تعرف هذا الشيء، وعندما تسأل لا تجد من يجاوبك على هذا الشيء. بالإضافة إلى أن أغلبية الحقوق لا يتم إعطاها للسجناء، وخصوصا اليوم نحن نواجه حق التعليم للدراسات العليا. يعني رأينا وشاهدنا جميع السجون في العالم هي تحاول أن ترتقي بسجنائها من خلال حقهم في التعليم، ولكن نحن في البحرين حتى التعليم الأساسي يجدون صعوبة في الحصول عليه.
At the beginning, when anyone will be arrested, he is not aware why he's been arrested, what he been accused of, what are the charges, and he gonna continue for a long time under arrest without knowing what is his crime. And part of it, I can mention here, his right to have education. They are being banned for continuing their education as a basic demands of any prison.
كقاعدة في حق التعليم، تفاجأنا هذا العام بأن هناك عشرات من الطلاب تقدموا إلى الامتحانات للثانوية، ولكن عند خروج النتائج أو نشر النتائج لم تكن أسماءهم موجودة من ضمن النتائج. وعندما راجعنا وزارة التربية مع العوائل لم يكن هناك وجود لهذه الأسماء. وعند مراجعة السجناء إدارة السجن قالوا لهم أنتم محرومين. لماذا؟ لأنهم كانوا في هذه الفترة مصابين بالكورونا وتم توزيع أوراق الامتحان، ولكن رفضت إدارة السجن استلام هذه الأوراق بالرغم أنها كانت تستطيع أن وخسروا عام من دراسيا من دراستهم.
An example on the education, many of the students who are in prison, they demanded to continue their education and the high school education. And when recently the high school results have been announced, we checked with the Ministry of Education because we couldn't find their name among the students. Then they referred us to the prisons administration. When we checked with them, they said that those students for them are not been there. They've been banned from the exams and not been given to them the exams papers, just because they claim that they are being affected by coronavirus. And so they accuse the reason for the COVID conditions. And for that reason, they'd been denied the basic right to continue their higher education, and they lost complete a year.
وطبعا لا أريد أن أطول بس ولكن أريد أن أقول فقرة بعد أيضا بالنسبة للعلاج وحق العلاج. هناك كثير من الحالات كما رصدتونهم بأنه يحرمون من حق العلاج، ولكن نحن اليوم نقول بأن من أصعب الأمور أن لا تعرف العوائل بأن أبنائها يتعرضون إلى الموت أو اللحظات الأخيرة مثل ما حدث لحسين بركات الأخير، حيث أننا وعائلتهم لم نكن نعرف بأنه كان في مراحل القريبة إلى الموت حتى توفاه الأجل، ولم يكن هناك علم من قبل العائلة بالتواصل مع إدارة السجن، والذي يفترض من ضمن القواعد أن يخبرون العائلة بالحالة الصحية. ولكن للأسف بعد أن يتوفى هذا الشخص يتم الاتصال من اتصال مجهول من أشخاص مجهولين أو متطوعين لكي يخبروهم بالحدث، ولكن أصحاب الشأن الإدارة هي تتخلى عن هذا الشيء.
And the second example of neglect or deprivation of the health care intentionally, and here I can bring up the case of Hussein Barakat. And it was so surprising to his family to find out that he was not feeling well, and he was given a lot of demands of his treatment to be done, but been neglected. And even after his death, no details about his health condition has been provided to the family to know that why he passed away and what was his medical conditions. So that gave us a very worrying issue that the authorities are not serious to be either to providing this healthcare to the prisoners or to provide this information to the families to be sure that their beloved one are really getting at least a minimum type of the healthcare within the prison premises. ده تنهين ابتسام؟ ابتسام؟
I think there's an internet interruption there, Jawad.
Okay.
Like to go ahead with one of the
okay. No, I think maybe she done. You can continue.
there
تفضلي.
Thank you.
آخر كلمة ابتسام.
نعم، أخبركم عن موقف حدث لي أنني كنت في الحبس الانفرادي فترة اعتقالي، فابتسمت لي إحدى الشرطيات عند دخولها غرفة الانفرادي، ولكن اختفت هذه الشرطية، وبعد أشهر عندما تم اختلاطي مع باقي السجينات أخبرتني هذه الشرطية بأنني غير مسموح لي أن أكون معك فوق، لقد تم نقلي بسببك، انتقلت لأنني ابتسمت لك ورصدتنا كاميرا الحبس الانفرادي التي كانت تراقبني 24 ساعة. يعني أبسط الأمور أن الابتسامة كانت نحن محرومين من أن نحصل حتى على ابتسام أو تعاطف من الشرطيات، وأيضا كان جريمة كبرى عندما يمتلك أي سجين قلم لتدوين أو كتابة أي شيء لديه. وشكرا، يعطيكم العافية.
I'll give the last example. When I used to be in isolated cell in women prisons, one of the women guards, once she came to my cell and then she disappeared for a long time. After a long time, for 4 months, then when I met with other prisoners, some other areas of the prison, then I met with her once again. She said that they moved me from your cell side, and they accused me that just because I smiled to your face. So imagine that if the guard tried to communicate or just smile to the face of other prisoners, he could be punished by shifting his position. And even a pen is not been allowed to the prisoners. They have to have a pen to write down whatever they want to on their memories or any type of the testimony they want to write it down on the papers. And she thanks us a lot once again that providing her this chance to elaborate her comments. Okay, Tara, back to you.
Thank you, Ebtisam, for that intervention. It's always a real honor to work with you. I admire your courage always and the incredible work that you do with people inside Bahrain and your work outside also. I'm so sorry for the inhumane treatment that you were subjected to, as we all are, obviously. We have about 15 minutes left, and I'd like to open the floor to questions if anybody would like to raise their hand, and I will give precedence to those people who have joined us from Bahrain. So you can raise your hands. One comment I will make on the back of what Jawad had said there and Ebtisam about prisoners not having even a pen to write with. There is one prisoner that Ali Mashema mentioned, Dr. Abdul Jalil Al-Sangais, who had been, as he's a long-term prisoner, he had been writing his memoirs over 3 years, and the prison authorities took the book that he had been writing from him and are refusing to return it. So it's been confiscated, and we do ask that that is returned to him. So I'd like to open to questions. Anybody?
You can make comments.
Yes, if anybody would like to make a comment, if anybody would, it doesn't have to be in the form of a question. If you'd like to make a statement or mention anything yourselves, you're very welcome to do that. Or I'm going to nominate you.
إحدى العوائل دخلت إذا ممكن إضافتها.
Jawad?
Yes.
Can you just translate what Ebtisam said there, please?
No, there's a family, they joined us. I'm expecting them to be on, so.
Okay, then we'll wait for a moment.
Okay. ابتسام خليهم يدخلوا مرة ثانية. Okay.
Dr. Damastani, is there anything that you would like to add in the meantime? And thank you for joining us today. Dr. Ibrahim Damastani.
Hello, Tara. How are you?
Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you for this great event, really. I am glad to be here with some brave people who I learned from them a lot. And as you mentioned about the prison in Bahrain and how they treat the people there and how they target the people and humiliate them. So from my experience during my imprisonment for 3 years there, it was really tough and difficult time. It's not because you are in a prison, because how they accept for themselves to target some patient in very bad way. For example, if someone he need a treatment or he needs some medication or he has a torture injury, they feel more than happy to see you suffering from the pain, suffering from the how you are deal with the type of doctors there, nurses. Even the doctors was very strange. We were expecting from the torturer to deal with us and to treat us in this way, but we didn't expect it that the doctor he tried to torture you while you are in his office. This is has happened in 2011 when we were in Al Gal hospital. It is Ministry of Interior Hospital. So it is very bad to focus on this issue. Really, a lot of people there in prison, they are suffering and still ongoing, as we heard from Ali Mshaima about his father suffering from the medication treatment, and a lot of thousand people like him. And imagine if someone in the hospital and he's in a building with 250 or 300, he should wait 4 days until he see or meet the doctor. And during the last month or 2 months, we observed that we lost two of our prisoners because they have medical problem and they delay them to let the doctor see them. So it is very important to focus on this issue and to keep more pressure on government of Bahrain to treat the not only to release with they should be released, but at least to treat them as a human in the prison. So thank you, Tara, and thank you, Jawad, for organizing this event and to let the people know what's going on in prison of Bahrain, and all the participants who share their testimony. And it's really brave, and we learned a lot of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Ibrahim. As one of the original medics who were arrested and tortured back in 2011 for treating protesters, we really do appreciate your intervention. I would like to invite Syed Moammel, if you would please make your intervention. It's really great to have you here. And Jawad, if you need to translate for him, please can I appoint you to do so? Thank you.
Thank you. Syed Moammel, tfaddal. He is a relative of one of the prisoners, Syed Alawi. He will let us know what's happened to him and what is his message. Syed Moammel, tfaddal. سيد مؤمل.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام، تفضل.
كان أنا أخو السجين السيد علوي الوداعي، كان المفترض
شوي عشان نترجم. I am brother of Sayyid Alawi al-Wida'i, who still is in prison and one of victims of the attack happened in 17th April 2021, which recently we got the testimony of Yunus about it. تفضل.
بعد اختفائهم القسري اللي صار في 17 ابريل، بعد هذا الاختفاء والضغط على يعني بعد مشوار طويل من الضغط، اتصل بي السيد علوي وخبرني وش اللي صار إليهم في هاي الفترة هذه.
After the attack, he been taken away to the unknown location, arbitrary. He been taken away that we are not aware where he was. But after a month of that incident, then he called me or called us. Then he told us what happened.
نعم. فعندي التسجيل بأكمله اللي تكلم لسيد علوي وش حدث إليه. هذا التسجيل كان مفترض الآن أنا أشتغل عليه، أسوي فيديو لأسمعكم إياه. جدا مؤلم، مواقف مؤلمة حدثت إليهم. وبالمناسبة كان ولدي هو اللي يسوي هاي الفيديو.
I have the record of his message to us, which we recorded it. We supposed to broadcast in this event. We have it in Arabic and we were working to make the English translation to it. تفضل.
لأول مرة أنا أعطي ولدي هذا التسجيل الصوتي، كان يستمع إليه ويحاول ينقل على الفيديو. من شدة ما سمع كان يبكي ما قدر يواصل الشغلة يعني.
Said Alawi's testimony is really heartbreaking. It shocked us a lot. And I asked my son to work on this video and try to work on the translation. Imagine that while my son used to hear his testimony of his uncle, all the time he used to cry. And it was really a very bad incident they've been through. And the thing that he said, it is really incredible. We cannot believe that such attacks or such unbelievable treatment, the way they done it with the prisoners happened to him.
نعم. فللاسف ما قدرنا يعني ما كملنا البرودكاست، ما كملنا الفيديو، فجيت انا مباشره على اساس يعني عشان ما يخلص هاي اللقاء بتكلم وياكم مباشره. الترجمه ما حدث للسيد علوي مترجم الان بالانجليزي، اذا تسمحوا لي بقرا بالانجليزي مباشره.
I have it and I will try to read it directly from whatever been translated to English. تفضل اقرا.
طبعا هو هذه المقاطع كثيره جدا، على اساس ما يطول المقام بقرا كم مقطع بس، والا هم كثير.
I will just read the part of what he said, a short part of it. It is very, very long. We can broadcast it maybe later on, but I will try to summarize the most important part of it.
سيد علوي لم my brother Sayyid Alawi, when he talked with me, he said, first of all, he said this word, which is I am the detainee Sayyid Alawi al-Wida'i. I am calling from Jaw Central Prison. I swear to tell the truth and nothing but the truth, only the truth what I will tell. This is what he tell me first, and then he give me a lot of sentences. I will just choose some of it. What exactly happened to me? I was dragged out of the cell. They were all against me and beat me with their hands. With their hands and legs all over my body. In the hallway, in the ward, and in the middle of the ward. My blood was everywhere. My head and my nose bled. I was trying to protect my face. I could not. I was hit in my left eye. I couldn't see. They continued to beat me. I couldn't take my breath because of some of the kicks in my chest. They were competing in beating me up. Lucky that got to me first and kicked me. I remember one of them kicked me with his knees with all his power in my face. Another one kicked me directly in my private parts. My testicle. Another thing, got out of corridor and the suffering is not over yet. One officer dragged me from the hallway to the reception's counter and through the hallway to the counter. I kept taking punches from everyone I passed by. At the reception, they throw me on my face. One of them stepped on my face. Another one was on my back, and a third one put his shoes in my mouth. It is very bad. They cuffed me, and a Bahraini officer came and crossed me and my mother. Then they carried me with blood dripping from my head and my face. Outside the building fence, they got me out of the building. They beat me at the door of the building. Then they put me in a bus. In the bus, one of them kept on hitting me with a metal object with no mercy. Continuous hits. My blood was all over the bus. The only one I could identify was Officer Ahmed Fares, Syrian. He is the whole prison know him. He isolated many of several years. While he was beating me, he was chanting, "We will step on Shia." This is what he said. Then an officer dragged me from the back of the bus to the front where there is the metal barrier between the driver and passenger. He held my head and squeezed it against the metal net multiple times, then hit me and pushed me. هذا ومقاطع كثيرة أستاذ، يعني بطول المقام لو ذكرتها مقاطع كثيرة.
This is just part of what he mentioned to us and what he been through. A lot of part of it is remaining, but due to the short time, I just read part of it. تفضل.
أنا أعتقد هم هؤلاء ليسوا يعني مساجين مثل احنا نتوقع المسجون فقط يقيدون عن حريته فقط. هؤلاء ليسوا مساجين هؤلاء يعني ضحايا يحاول الطرف الآخر يستغلهم في حسابات سياسية أعتقد، ويحاول يصب كل حقده يصب عليهم. فأي أحداث تصير خارج هو يصب حقده عليهم ويحاول يساوم بهم. هذا اللي هم المساجين عندنا.
Those prisoners that we are talking about, they are not just normal prisoners. They are being targeted intentionally and for so many political reasons. And it is so clear that so many hatred toward them and so many punishment even after they've been tried and sentenced. is being applied over them. And it is really unhuman acts, which we can hear a lot of story and continuous such brutal attack over them. The basic rights of any prisoner, they've been deprived of. In the meantime, so many continuous attacks and inhuman attacks over them is very, very obvious. And we can see, and what we just heard is part of a very small incidents that happened, but such incidents is happening so normal in many, many prisoners, especially those prisoners who are having certain types of involvement of the political life, and they are considered to be political of conscience.
شكرا لكم، فقط هاي اللي أحب أقوله، ومشكورين جدا. Thank you too much.
Okay.
Jamal, thank you so much for joining us and bravely for joining us. And we know that the Al-Wadai family and the Mashema family and so many others are targeted specifically because of their outspokenness inside the country, and also because some of the relatives who are outside continue to advocate for their freedom. And I know that it's very upsetting for you all to have spoken today about these things, and I really respect it. Something that Pat Sheehan mentioned to me before he left, we only have 5 minutes left, but just very quickly, there is a film. It's called Hunger. It was made in 2008, and it stars Michael Fassbender. It gives the clearest, most truthful representation of what the Irish prisoners suffered in 1981 during the Troubles. And I would encourage you to watch it, because then I think you will see how much we empathize with you from here in Ireland, and you really have our solidarity. I would like to ask Jawad if there is another participant that you would like to have join us. All right.
No, there is not, due to the short time, I think.
Right. Right. Well, we will continue with this conversation, obviously, elsewhere. We will have many more of these meetings. And I will now bring the meeting to close. I wish you all the blessings of Nelson Mandela Day, and for freedom and for justice and accountability for those prisoners who are suffering in Bahrain. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you, and goodbye.